The unwanted passenger, they noticed him the moment he stepped onto the diplomatic shuttle. He was the last to board. Tall, quiet, thin. The fabric of his old Earth-made coat hung loose around his shoulders, like it no longer belonged to him. He didn't look at anyone. He moved with strange stillness as if trying not to disturb something that followed behind him. Ambassador Thalzine of the Arachi delegation narrowed her eyes. The moment her gaze landed on the human, her mandibles twitched. She felt it again. That ancient warning her ancestors whispered through her blood. The feeling that something was wrong. Deeply wrong. "There shouldn't be a human here," she hissed to her aide in their native tongue. "We agreed on neutral species only. No predators." "His presence was cleared by Central Council," the aide replied, checking the datapad. "He's listed as liaison, observer, Terran Union. No further details." Thalzin stared as the human took the farthest seat in the dim corner of the main chamber. He folded his hands, lowered his head, and simply waited. The doors sealed shut. The shuttle began its slow glide through void space. The stars outside stretched like pale claws. "This will not stand," Thalzin growled. "I will have him removed." The others noticed him too. The Glenari ministers whispered. The cold-blooded Zephyrs kept glancing at him with their eye stalks half-tucked. Even the synthetics turned their sensory nodes in his direction longer than protocol allowed. No one said a word to him. They just felt it. Something about him made the artificial air feel thicker, harder to breathe. The lights above dimmed slightly, though no one touched the settings. And in the observation windows, some began to notice reflections that didn't quite match what was in the room. That night cycle, Thalzin entered the central chamber. The human was still there, still seated, unmoving. She strode toward him with the authority of a warrior-blooded envoy. "You," she said. "Identify yourself." He looked up. His eyes were the color of frozen ash. "My name is John," he said softly. Just that. Not representative. John. Not Ambassador John. Just John. "Your presence is not approved," Thalzin snapped. "The Council may have allowed it, but I do not. Your kind is unstable, violent. Your wars nearly destroyed 3 sectors." He blinked once. "That's true," he said, "but not all of it." "You will leave this vessel at the next docking ring," she declared. His voice didn't rise, but it seemed to echo deeper than it should have. "I'm afraid I can't do that." "Why?" He looked at her for a long moment. Something flickered behind his eyes. "Because then, it would wake up." The next day cycle, the nightmares began. "Ambassador," Fektul of the Zephyr screamed in the sleep chambers. Security found him shivering in his protective casing, mumbling about a voice that had entered his mind. "It said we forgot," he kept muttering. "We forgot what they are." In the records room, an archive assistant ran a diagnostic. The files from pre-contact cycles, forgotten wars, erased history, had begun rewriting themselves. Lines of old, human languages appearing where they shouldn't. Warnings in dead dialects, mentions of a name no one could pronounce. And all across the ship the temperature dropped, not in any measurable way, just in the bones. Thalzin confronted John again. "You are causing this," she snarled. "You are spreading fear." "I haven't moved," he said, quietly. "Then what is doing this?" He slowly turned his head toward the observation window. Outside, the stars had gone dark. A shape floated in the void. Massive. Unseen before. Without heat or light signature, the ship's sensors showed nothing. But every organic aboard could feel it, watching, waiting. John finally stood. Everyone in the chamber froze. Even the air system stuttered, as if the ship itself sensed what was about to happen. "This ship was built on an ancient path," he said. "An old one, long forgotten. Once used by those who came before your kind, before even the deep ones." "What are you talking about?" Thalzin demanded. He stepped forward. "You called us dangerous," he said. "You were right. But not because of what we did. His eyes darkened. Because of what we sealed away. Sealed what? John looked around. You're on its doorstep. Then the lights went out. All of them. No power failure. No warning. Just darkness. And from the hull, a sound began. Slow. Scraping. Like claws against metal. Scraping to get in, or scraping to get out. They sealed it for a reason. Darkness swallowed the shuttle. No lights. No hum of the engines. No flickering interface screens. The entire diplomatic vessel, once a symbol of interstellar peace, now floated silently through the void like a coffin. The only sound was breath. Uneven. Panicked. Coming from every species. Aboard. They couldn't see each other. Couldn't even see their own hands. But they felt him. They felt John standing in the middle of the chamber. Not moving. Not afraid. And then came the knocking. Not from inside the ship. Not from outside. But from somewhere else. Somewhere deeper. 3 slow thuds against the floor beneath them. Like something impossibly large had stirred from slumber. And was waking. Up. A soft vibration passed through the deck plating as though the ship itself was holding its breath. Ambassador Thalzian reached for her emergency blade, a ceremonial weapon never meant for real combat, but she gripped it like her life depended on it. Lights, someone whispered. No response. Emergency backup systems, another voice pleaded. Still nothing. And then, a flicker, just one. A light from the central console blinked once, then again. John stepped toward it, his face briefly illuminated by the flash. His eyes were not normal anymore. They glowed with something ancient. Not light, not fire. Something older. Do not turn the power back on, he said quietly. Why? Thalzian rasped, trying to keep her voice steady. He looked straight at her. Because it sees through light. They sealed the power grid manually using a bypass from the engine room. When the lights returned, they were dimmer than before. Stretched. Wrong somehow. Like light bleeding through water. And in the far windows, the stars were no longer where they had been. They had moved. Or the ship had. Except the nav systems insisted they hadn't changed course. This isn't our space, muttered Vectal, his eye stalks trembling. This isn't void space anymore. We're outside the mapped lanes, one of the pilots confirmed. But that's not possible. We didn't engage the drives. They were adrift, somewhere cold, somewhere the stars refused to shine properly, and in that new darkness the walls began to whisper. At first it was faint, like a breeze brushing old paper. Then words began forming. Not in any known language, but every species understood it. A voice that bypassed translation chips and implants. It spoke straight into the soul. You forgot us. You sealed the gate, but not the hunger. You built ships across graves. Now the grave opens. He was the key they were never meant to find. They found the humans' room. No one had dared enter it before. The door had remained locked ever since John arrived, sealed with a code no system could break. But now, it stood open. Not broken, not forced, just open, like the room had decided it was time. Thalzian led the entry team herself. Her clawed feet moved slowly across the threshold, heart pounding with every step. The light inside was low and strange, greenish, like algae beneath deep water. The walls were covered in paper, real paper. Sheets pinned, layered, curling at the edges, covered in human handwriting. Notations, diagrams, fragments of something vast. Symbols circled over and over in ink. They all looked like eyes, but none were the same. Some had too many lids. Others were weeping. And one, just one, was scratched so deeply into the metal wall behind the paper that the bulkhead had buckled. A single word was repeated across hundreds of pages. Returner. What is all this? Whispered Vectal, trembling. Research, said Thalzian. No, said Lyra, stepping forward. Preparation. They activated the room's console. A single video file remained. Its timestamp was over 200 years old. The screen flickered and John's face appeared. Younger. Tired. Covered in blood. He spoke softly, like someone whispering to themselves, in the middle of a long nightmare. If you're seeing this, I failed to contain it, his voice cracked. They made me forget. I asked them to. After the war, they took what I knew and locked it behind walls in my mind. They left just enough to remind me where to go and what to do when the signs returned. He looked off screen, as if something was watching him. The gate never closes. It only breathes. In and out. In and out. And every few cycles something slips through. A whisper. A dream. A sickness. So they built people like me. Carriers. Keys. He looked directly into the camera. I wasn't born, I was made from memories. The screen went black. What does it mean? Thalzin muttered. Delta 9, the synthetic, answered in a voice colder than usual. He was not a man. He was a seal. Alarms began to echo through the ship, not loud, not mechanical, just two tones, repeating, low, low, high. The emergency code for an anomaly breach. Only one place matched the alert. Section 9, near the memory core. They rushed there, but the hallways were different now, longer. Wrong. The lights didn't follow them anymore. They stayed behind like they were too afraid to come along. When they reached the memory core chamber, the door was already open, and John stood inside, but not as before. He wasn't wearing his coat. His skin was cracked like porcelain, glowing from within. Symbols ran down his spine like ink bleeding into old stone. His eyes were empty. Not blind, just hollowed out, like something had used them to look through. He turned. You shouldn't have come, he said. What are you? Lyra asked, voice shaking. John tilted his head. What they made when they had no other choice. He reached out, touching the core interface with one hand. The ship shuddered. Walls began pulsing. And then, a sound. Deep. Not through ears, but through bones. Like a voice speaking from behind reality. You left us, it said. You broke the pact. John whispered back. I never left. I only forgot. And then the core opened, not exploded, not malfunctioned, opened like a wound. Inside there was no machinery, just darkness layered alive, and from that dark, something stepped out, taller than John, shaped like him, but not human. Its face was a blur, a constant shifting of every species that had ever screamed in the dark. We were never meant to return, John said. The thing nodded, but did not stop. It reached, for John, and wrapped its hands around his head, not to kill, to remember. John collapsed. But the thing stayed, and spoke in many voices. He held us back. For so long, but now you see the pact is broken. What do you want? Thalzin screamed. To finish what you interrupted. We didn't do anything. You built with bones. We didn't know. He knew, and now he's empty. It turned, and the walls began peeling again. Not from heat, from memory. The ship was starting to remember too much. And it was forgetting what it was. The delegates ran. But the halls twisted, familiar paths bent backward. Voices screamed from inside the walls, calling each of them by name, not yelling, not threatening, just remembering them. Do you remember the dream you had as a child? The wall whispered to Vektal. Do you remember the voice you ignored on the moon? It whispered to Lyra. Do you remember what you left behind when you chose war? They reached the cryo chamber again. It was empty. No bodies. No ice. Just rows of blank eyes staring from the floor. The others who had once been aboard. Now, unformed. We can't run, Thalzin said. Lyra nodded. We have to finish what he started. And what's that? Close the gate. But the gate was not on the ship. Not anymore. It had moved. They had moved it. The voice confirmed it. We brought it, with us. In him, in pieces, across time, through bloodlines. You thought it was a myth. It was a map. The only way to stop it now was to follow John into the dark and face what lived there. We gave them peace, and they gave us the key. They stood at the edge of the gate. It wasn't a place, not really, not anymore. One moment, they were on the diplomatic shuttle. The next, they were not. No alarms, no transitions, no movement, just gone. And now, here, the survivors, Thalzin, Lyra, Vectal, Delta 9, stood in something that felt like a memory shaped into a world. Stars above that didn't shine. Ground below that didn't echo footsteps. Everything was muted, quiet, dead, yet watching. The air tasted like grief. And at the center of it all, John knelt before a door. Not a physical one. A door made of thought. It pulsed like a heartbeat, and every pulse whispered an old human name. This is where they brought peace, John said quietly. They moved toward him slowly. Peace? Thalzin asked. This place is poison. This is death. Not death, John said, his voice hollow, distant. A promise. To who? He looked back at them. To you. The others stared at the door. Images flickered across it. Blurry flashes of wars long past. Entire fleets burning. Planets screaming. And human soldiers standing alone in fields of ash. And behind them, shadows. Not enemies. Something worse. Something that watched the war unfold and waited for its end. During the last days of the Great War, John said, humanity reached the edge of extinction. We had no more weapons, no more stars, nothing but broken breath and dying light. So you begged. Vectal spat. You called something ancient and begged it to help. John didn't argue. Yes. He stood now. We gave them what they wanted. In return, they gave us victory. They ended the war with a whisper. Entire fleets had just gone, erased from memory, from time. And the price? Lyra asked, voice trembling. John stepped closer to the door. We became the key. Every generation, one of us is chosen, made differently, filled with the silence of the gate, trained to keep it shut, to carry it like a wound. He looked up at them. I was this cycle's key. The door pulsed again, a deep tone, like the universe itself inhaling. And now it wants to open, John whispered. Then we stop it, Thalzin said. You can't, John said, because it doesn't open from this side. What does that mean? It's not about the door. It's about me. He placed a hand on his chest. When I started remembering, it started awakening. I tried to fight it, tried to stay small, quiet, unnoticed. He looked at Lyra. But you saw me. He looked at Vectal. You feared me. And then Thalzin. You tried to remove me. He took a deep breath, and all that attention woke it. The sky above cracked. Not a sound, not thunder, just a split. A wound in the stars, and through it, something moved. Massive, folded in too many directions. Its presence wasn't loud. It was heavy. Like grief, given form, they fell to their knees. Delta 9's sensors overloaded. Sparks flew from its chest. What is it? Thalzin gasped. It's what waits at the edge of forgetting, John said. What the ancient ones feared. What we made a pact with. We called it peace. It called us food. The thing did not land. It did not need to. It simply was. And the ground around the door began to dissolve into dust. Not break. Dissolve. Like it had never been real. Then shut it, Vectal screamed. You're the key. Shut it. John looked at the door. His hands shook. I can't, he whispered. Why? Because I'm not the last key. I'm just the last human. The door pulsed again. The light pouring from it was wrong. It didn't reflect. It absorbed. And in that light, they saw more humans. Not alive. Not dead. Figures standing behind the door, hands pressed against it. Watching. Waiting. Thousands of them. Who are they? Lyra asked. The others like me, John said. Those who came before. Every generation, one key. Every time. They failed. And you? I held it longer than most, but now? His eyes closed. Now it needs a new key. The creature above moved again. It unfolded one of its limbs, and reality bent. Their thoughts fractured. They forgot names, forgot where they were, forgot why they had ever feared anything at all. Just silence. Soft. Total. Then John screamed. The door lit up with fire, the memory of stars collapsing. He reached forward. His body began breaking apart, not bleeding, just unraveling. Pieces of memory pulled from him like thread. He smiled and said, I remember. The door began to close. Just a little. Just enough. But the creature noticed, and it turned. Not toward John. Toward the others. Toward Thalzin. It needs another key, John said, barely breathing. One who remembers. One who sees. One who regrets. Thalzin took a step back. No, I'm not like you. But her hands were shaking, because she did remember. Things she thought forgotten. The war crimes. The cities erased. The silent dead. She had buried them. But now they were clawing back. Every species made sacrifices, John whispered. But only humans were willing to become the sacrifice. He reached out and touched her forehead, and suddenly Thalzin saw it all. The war, the pact, the first gate. And John, just a child, watching his planet burn while a voice whispered promises of peace in his mind. The gate closed, but not fully. Sliver of light remained. You have to take it, John said. Take what? My silence. What if I can't hold it? John smiled. Then pray the next species is braver than yours. And then he was gone. Dust in the windless dark, and Thalzin fell to the ground, screaming, not in fear, in memory. The last silence, the void didn't return. Them. It rewrote them. The survivors didn't wake up in the shuttle. They woke up inside themselves, scattered memories. Whispers in the blood. Fragments of a ship that no longer existed. Names half remembered. Doors that opened in the wrong directions. Thalzin was the first to become aware again, but her body no longer felt like her own. Her limbs twitched with echoes of John's memories. Her eyes burned with symbols she couldn't unsee. She was breathing, in thoughts that weren't hers. She remembered everything. The old pact. The gate beneath the ash moon. The voices that called to her species, across generations, unheard only because they didn't want to listen. And John's face, smiling through the pain, giving up everything so they wouldn't have to. Until now. Now it was her turn. The void around her pulsed like a heart without rhythm. Somewhere in the distance, the creature still moved, no longer hunting, watching, waiting. The deal was incomplete. A new key was needed. The galaxy had taken peace from the humans like it was owed to them. They never asked what it cost. And now, the price circled back. Lyra emerged next, but her voice was broken. She spoke in flickers of sound, sometimes in Terran dialect, sometimes in symbols. Vectal was weeping, curled in on himself, whispering his mother's name. Delta. 9 sparked once and fell silent, its programming unable to hold meaning in a reality shaped by memory. Thalzin stood alone. She looked at the space where John once had been. Flicker of dust hovered there, glowing softly. Not gone, just waiting. She reached out, and the dust entered her, not forcefully, like a gift, like a torch passed from one hand to and the silence came. Not emptiness, not quiet, but a deeper kind of hush, the kind that speaks, the kind that remembers. Dalzine screamed. She felt entire histories pour through her veins. Terrible truths. Not just human atrocities, but what every species had done and hidden, the graves built into cities, the old signals silenced to avoid the guilt, and in the center of it all, humanity, not because they were special, but because they were willing. They offered themselves to hold the wound closed, and now the wound wanted a new guardian. You don't understand what he did, Lyra rasped. He wasn't just holding the gate shut, he was keeping us from becoming like it. Dalzine staggered back. What do you mean? The more you remember, the more the gate sees you. So what do? You forget. I can't forget now. Then become. The creature moved again. It unfolded its limbs, and the gate reappeared. Not like before. This time it wasn't a door. It was a mirror. It showed Dalzine herself, but not as she was. As she would be, if she accepted the silence. Husk not a keeper, a guardian of memory in a galaxy that feared truth. She would walk among the stars, unacknowledged, feared, forgotten. Like John, she would never be Dalzine again. Just the silence. Just the key. Vekatal screamed as the creature bent, reality around him. He vanished into light. Lyra was next, a smile on her lips as she stepped forward. Maybe this is how it ends, she said. Not with war, not with peace. With understanding. And then, she was gone. Only Dalzine remained. The gate pulsed, a voice echoed from within. Not John's, her own, but older. This is what you feared in humans, it said. Not their strength, not their violence, their willingness to carry what you wouldn't. She fell to her knees, clawed hands trembling. She remembered the children lost in her campaigns, the ones she called collateral, the cities turned to glass, the peace she forced after the war, and how she blamed humans for everything because they were easy to hate, because they reminded her of herself. She stood and faced the mirror and said the words, I will remember. The gate lit up, then sealed, not violently, gently, like a sigh, and the void shattered. She woke on the shuttle floor. Only her. The rest were gone. The ship was empty, silent. But her heart wasn't. She could feel it. Every name, every sacrifice, every forgotten whisper from 1,000 broken civilizations. Inside her. Alive. Aching. The weight of peace. The truth behind silence. The human was never weak. He was chosen. And now, so was she. Ambassador Dalzine called a council meeting. They sat in silence around the table, all eyes fixed on John. He said nothing. Not until Dalzine, shaking with restrained fury, demanded answers. What did your kind unleash? She snapped. What is this thing following us? John slowly leaned forward. We didn't unleash it, he said. Then what? We buried it. What is it? He looked at them all. Not with pride, not with power, with guilt. The reason humanity was quarantined for 80 years. The room went silent. John placed a small black device on the table. It clicked once. Then began to play a recording. A voice spoke. Old. Broken. Human. Operation Deep Lock complete. Terran fleet has sealed breach point Omega-9. Do not attempt retrieval. Repeat, do not attempt retrieval. Artifact known as the Heart of Sleep has been neutralized but not destroyed. Dormant presence remains. Do not approach. Do not follow. Do not. The audio dissolved into static. We thought it was dead, John said, but it was never dead, only waiting. Waiting for what? Dalzine asked. John's voice dropped. For us to forget. The next death came in silence. Ambassador Xalier of the Glenari. Delegation never made it back to her quarters. They found her body inside the water recycling chamber, or what was left of her. Her face had been peeled away. Not torn, not cut. Peeled. as if something curious had wanted to see what was underneath. The room was locked from the inside, and in the condensation on the chamber walls, something had drawn symbols, not with fingers, with claws, and they matched the symbols on John's device. Symbols etched in a spiral that went inward, forever inward. Panic swept the shuttle. The delegates turned on each other. Accusations flew. Someone locked themselves in the escape pod, only for the pod to vanish minutes later without leaving the docking clamps. Outside the ship, the black shape continued to follow. Silent, featureless, closer now, too close. And inside, the voices grew louder. "It's not the human," one of the synthetics declared. "We should eliminate him before he spreads the infection." John didn't resist, he only looked at them. "You think this is something I brought?" he said. "But this is something we buried beneath your feet." "What do you mean?" He turned slowly to the viewport. "This ship was built using alloys mined from a dead moon. We begged your engineers not to use those materials. We warned the council." "What moon?" He whispered one word. "Ilion." The room went still. Ilion, the lost mining colony, the one erased from charts after the last Terran war. Rumors had swirled, whispers of vanishing fleets, entire species going mad. But no one believed it, just a human war zone. Just another chapter of blood and ashes, but it wasn't. Ilion wasn't a battlefield, John said. It was a lock. The lights flickered again. This time, when they came back on, someone new was standing, in the chamber. Tall, impossibly thin, cloaked in layers of ash. No one had seen them enter. No one had heard the door. It didn't have a face, just hollow light where a face should have been, and it spoke without sound. The diplomats collapsed, too, their knees clutching their heads. Some wept. Others screamed. The synthetic seized and went still. Only John remained standing, and he spoke to the thing in a tongue no longer taught. Words made of sorrow and fire. It didn't answer. It just turned and began walking through the wall, not breaking it, passing through it like it had never been solid, and behind it, the metal began to decay, rusted, blackened, alive. Only one recording survived that moment, a short clip, taken from a security cam before it failed completely. The footage shows John turning to Thalzin, placing a hand gently on her shoulder, and saying one sentence. "You asked why we were dangerous." Then the recording ends, and the screaming begins. The gate was never supposed to open. No one spoke for hours after it happened. They sat in silence, some curled against walls, others whispering prayers to dead gods. The observation glass still shimmered from where the faceless thing passed through. The metal warped around its absence like it didn't want to forget the shape. And John was gone, not missing, not dead, just not there anymore. As if the moment that creature vanished through the wall, it took him with it. Ambassador Thalzin sat alone in the command chamber, blood dried on her claws. Her aide had lost their mind 3 hours earlier and was currently locked inside the mess hall, repeating a child's lullaby in broken clicks. She stared at the main console. The data feed was looping nonsense. Symbols, stars that didn't exist, timestamps from negative dates. The ship's voice kept repeating one phrase. "System breach detected. Contact with the outside has been lost. The gate is open." But there was no gate. Not on this ship. Not anymore. 6 of the remaining delegates gathered in the auxiliary chamber. It was darker there. Quieter. Somehow the shadows felt safer. "It was him," Vectal whispered, trembling. He summoned it. That human. He let it in. "No," said another. "He tried to stop it. He warned us. We didn't listen." Listen to what? Ancient Terran myths? The heart of sleep? The forgotten moon? None of it makes sense. Ambassador Lyra of the Nyx Collective stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were unfocused. "I saw something," she said. "When it passed through the wall." They turned to her. "What?" A memory, not mine, not human, something old. I saw the first gate. Gate? Before the Terrans, before the galaxy was mapped. There were others, beings that didn't move through space. Space moved around them, and they left gates, prisons, locks made of time and thought. And we built ships with those materials? Vectal whispered. She nodded. Humanity didn't create the danger. They inherited it. Then why were they quarantined? Because they knew. Because they remembered. The temperature dropped again, not across the ship, just in the chamber. A frost began creeping up the walls, forming spirals like the symbols from John's device. One of the synthetics, Unit Delta 9, activated a heat pulse from its core. It didn't help. There's a presence, Delta 9 reported. Something moving, inside the bulkhead. They turned to the wall. Nothing there, until the lights blinked once and handprints appeared. Dozens, maybe hundreds, pressed into the wall from the inside. Then the sound came. Not scraping, not footsteps. Weeping, not loud. Soft, childlike. From the wall, not from everywhere. What does it want? Someone choked out. Lyra slowly stepped toward the sound. I don't think it wants us. Then what? Him. John. Yes, it's calling to him. Why? Because he left the gate open. Across the ship, systems began reactivating on their own. Doors opening and closing, lights flickering in patterns, artificial gravity twisting into pulses. The ship was shifting, changing shape, or remembering a shape it had before. They gathered, in the command hub again, watching the sensor feed twist and bleed data. Where are we? Someone asked. The nav screen showed no known stars, just static, and one red dot, floating nearby. Closer now. And then a voice crackled through the comms. John's voice. But slower. Older. Don't come looking. They froze. The gate is open, but I can hold it. For a little longer. Where are you? Thalzin shouted. What is happening? I'm somewhere else now. It wanted me because of what I remembered. What I was trained for. Trained for what? The voice faded. But one sentence came through clearly before the line went dead. We made a deal a long time ago. I'm the payment. Ambassador Thalzin stared at the console for a long time. Then she spoke, quietly, to herself. They made a pact. Who did? A voice behind her asked. She turned. Lyra was standing there, her eyes dark, her skin pale. Humanity, Thalzin said. They didn't just survive their ancient war. They bargained with something. Something that lives between reality. To win, they had to sacrifice something. Lyra nodded slowly. They sacrificed a part of themselves. A part that never came back. What part? Their silence. What do you mean? When humans stopped screaming during the war, that's when the galaxy should have been afraid. In the cryogenic bay, another incident occurred. The backup ambassador for the Safari delegation, who had locked himself in stasis, was found awake. But his body was still frozen. Just his face, wide open eyes, lips trembling, mouthing one word over and over. Hungry. They couldn't shut the chamber down, because the interface was speaking in human script. Old Earth symbols, symbols banned after the Elion incident. Someone activated the ship's emergency beacon. A burst signal went out, encoded with every known language, and in the silence after, they waited. A response came 13 minutes later. From Earth. One word. Do not return. On the observation deck, Lyra stood alone. She felt it again. Not just the presence of the creature, but John. He was still connected to the ship, still trying to guide them through the dark. She placed her hand on the glass and saw something move behind her reflection. Not a shape. A memory. A child. Human. Standing at the foot of a massive black gate carved into the soil of a dead moon, and voices whispering above it. One must always stay behind, to keep it asleep. If they leave, it wakes. She collapsed. They carried her to the infirmary, but nothing helped. The medbots registered her brainwaves fluctuating like she was in multiple dream states at once. She finally opened her eyes and whispered, "He was never supposed to leave." In the engine room, the wall cracked, not from heat, not from pressure, from inside. The material folded inward, curling like paper, and something began crawling out. Not fast, not monstrous, just quiet, tall, and made of everything wrong with memory. They fired every weapon they had. The thing walked through the fire and whispered one word, "Return."